Baker Mayfield. He reminds me of a shorter version of Brett Favre. He can throw it. He's very confident. He's not afraid whatsoever.
Another guy that isn't getting nearly as much attention as I believe he should be is Florida international receiver T.Y. Hilton. 6 returns over his career, combining kick and punt returns for touchdowns.
He has the mindset, and he has the intelligence, and he understands the offense to a T. Kirk's our quarterback. We could have done a deal right then and got it for long term and been a slam dunk.
Sam is a good football player. The problem is he's not a great football player, and we're bringing so much attention to a guy that, frankly, is a day 3 prospect.
And now, the Instinctive Scouting Podcast, featuring 2-time NFL General Manager Scott McLuhan and NFLDraftScout.com Senior Analyst Rob Rang.
Hi, and welcome to the Instinctive Scouting Podcast, also known as the ISP. I'm your host, Rob Rang, and in just a second, you're going to hear from the real star of the program, former NFL General Manager and current scouting consultant to multiple NFL teams, Scott McLuhan, who has agreed to join me here each week to break down the biggest names and games in college and pro football with an eye always towards the NFL draft. Scott, I think we need to first start off talking about the future Hall of Famer, Drew Brees, who, of course, is now the NFL's all-time leading passer with 72,103 yards. Scott, can you just kind of, for one, just kind of reflect on the record, and then any stories that you might have, if you remember Drew Brees coming out of Purdue, or just all the games that you may have had to go up against him during your NFL career.
You know what? First of all, congratulations to him. What he's done is so impressive, it's not even funny. Now, the game's changed a lot from the standpoint of quarterbacks and how much they throw compared to, back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But it's interesting with him because he's done it right. He had the shoulder injury, of course, in San Diego, and everybody said he's done. And, New Orleans made a leap of faith to sign him.
Yeah.
And gave him a good contract. But it's interesting because when he was measured going into his senior year, he was 5'11", 7. Okay? Like he's a midget. Guys can't that short can't play.
Yeah.
So he goes to the Hula Bowl. I'll never forget. He was 6'0", which is 6 foot and an 8.
Yep.
So he was beyond 6 foot. Everybody's like, okay, now we can draft him possibly. But he, as you're well aware, everybody listens well aware, he's been a really good football player everywhere he's been. High school, stud, college, stud, NFL, stud. And he goes about the right way. And knowing what he's done is so hard to do. And I don't, I know the game's changed. I understand it's offensive driven and all that. But still, you touch the ball every snap, you have to make plays. And you know what? He's done it. And it's just, sitting back as a personnel guy and just looking at good football players or great football players, it's awesome because it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do every Sunday to go out there or whatever, Monday, Thursday, whatever the game is. But to produce at a high level against the competition you go against, it's just amazing, and he's such a quality person. And I think you saw it last night, with his family and all that.
Yeah.
But that's him. That's him every day. You know what? He shows up, he works his tail off, and he doesn't back down. And, from a personnel standpoint, outside looking in, because, of course, I've never been with him as a player with the team, but just seeing how he's gone about his business and how professional he is and how talented he is and how he gives you a chance to win every weekend. And then that's cool.
I agree with you. I think that was really well said because, it's, first off, you just have to kind of say congratulations. And, I agree with you. It is a different era. But buddy of mine, Pete Prisco at CBS, pointed out accurately that, it'd be interesting to see what Dan Marino would do, just given his talent. if he was playing the way that the system is set up now, that is in favor of offensive players. But it's just the consistency that Brees has demonstrated. I mean, throughout his career, as you said, high school, college, and then obviously in the NFL and going to 2 different franchises. And, you see some of the other greats on those lists, whether it be the Peyton Manning or the Brett Favres, the Joe Montanas, whoever it might be. They had another iconic pass catcher that helped them, create some of those numbers. Even Marino back in Denver, with the Marques brothers. And not to say that Drew Brees did not have phenomenal talent around him in New Orleans right now and with the Chargers previously, but I thought it was interesting. I mean, when he passed, of course he passed Brett Favre and Peyton Manning in that Monday night win. And the first time he passes Favre on a 1-yard touchdown to Josh Hill, not exactly a household name. And then he passes Manning on a 63-yard catch-and-run touchdown to Traquan Smith, a rookie from Central Florida. This isn't Michael Thomas he's throwing to. It's not Jimmy Graham he's throwing to. I mean, he is one of the things that's always impressed me so much about Drew Brees is he throws to the open receiver, regardless of whether or not they have all-stars or Pro Bowls underneath their name or not. And, his ability to distribute the ball, just that release and just the accuracy. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a more accurate passer, and so it really is phenomenal. And then, as you said, his ability to come back from that shoulder injury. I mean, I remember that well. And there was a lot of talk that he was done. And as you said, for the Saints to take that leap of faith, for him obviously to take them to Super Bowl glory, and a lot of times you see players who, when they break career records like this, they're kind of limping along. They're on the back stages of their career. I mean, Peyton Manning, for all the respect I have for Manning, he was not the same player at the end of his career, of course, that he was earlier. Drew Brees is still playing like an MVP candidate. I mean, the Saints are in first place. I mean, it really is remarkable and a testament to Brees' talent, but also to his work ethic, to his commitment, that he has been as successful as he has. Was there, kind of any other thoughts you wanted to say about Drew Brees before we start talking about some other teams or players that have either surprised us or disappointed us to this point?
Yeah, the thing is, like I said, very impressive. The thing about it is, which I respect so much, is not just a great football player, but a great person.
Yeah.
You know what? And he does it right. He doesn't embarrass the organization. He doesn't embarrass himself. He goes out there and plays football. And like you said, the accuracy is impeccable. And the fact that, like you said about the receivers, he doesn't need, a true number 1 or true number 2 or true number 3. He's going to find the open guy because his instincts and his eyes are so good. And that's what he does during the week. He watches so much tape and he realizes what the defense is trying to do to him. And, and to the receivers, in the running game, everything. But he's few and far between. And what he's going to get with the Hall of Fame induction, the first ballot, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
He totally deserves, but you're right. He's going to keep playing. He's not slowing down.
Well, and that's to me, one of the exciting things. I mean, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about the quarterbacks in their division. You have Jameis Winston, of course, number 1 overall pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You have Cam Newton, number 1 overall pick, Carolina Panthers. You have Matt Ryan, number 3 overall pick. He and Newton, of course, former NFL MVPs. And so I think that to me, it's that type of competitive spirit. I mean, when you have, as you said, a first ballot, future Hall of Famer, NFL's all-time record holder, and he's the only quarterback of the bunch that wasn't a first-round pick. I think it's that chip on your shoulder is, I think, one of the reasons why it drove him to his greatness at this point. I mean, I would argue that if he's 6'3", if he had been blessed with that quote-unquote prototypical size and all that, I don't know that he has that work ethic. I think part of the reason why he is so successful is that he's had to kind of prove his doubters wrong, and boy, has he.
Yes, I totally agree. He's always been, he can't because he's 6 foot. He can't, You see the same thing with Russell Wilson. You see the same thing, with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
They're not prototypical size, They're like, okay, well, you know what? But what they are, they're football players. And that's all that matters. You get out on the field, between those white lines and the whistle blows, here we go. And football players make plays. You know, highway speed's great, but football players make plays. You know, you've seen Sam Mills. You know, everybody said he's 5'10", he's a linebacker. He can't do it. Well, he did it pretty dang good.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's all over the league. Of course, you want the perfect, identical, prototypical, you know, player, but it doesn't happen. It's football. It's a game, and guys that can make plays, plain and simple.
Well, exactly. Well, it's, you know, Drew Brees, and here we are talking about one of the, you know, the all-time passing leader, and so that kind of got me thinking about some of the all-time NFL prospects, you know, as far as top guys, and that's going to kind of lead me on a little bit later. I'm going to talk about the Rams and the Seahawks matchup, and as well as maybe the Chiefs and the Jaguars, a couple of NFL games that really jumped out at me, but. You know, we're talking about the all-time passer, and again, I mentioned all-time prospects, and so I wanted to kind of get your thought on that. You know, I mean, maybe, I don't know if you remember, you mentioned the story about the Hula Bowl, and that's great. I mean, I just love that. You know, it's so convenient how we kind of change the sizes a little bit for a player that we need, kind of like we talked about in a prior ISP podcast about the medicals. Sometimes if you want a player bad enough, you kind of convince your medical staff that, hey, we need this guy to pass. But is there any players that, I'll just start off myself. I mean, I watched that Rams-Seahawks game, and I still see Ndamukong Suh as being a potentially dominant player. And he is the player that actually had the highest grade of any prospect that I've ever graded. And I'm actually looking at my 2001, when Drew Brees came into the NFL. That was the very first year that I published my own draft guide. And I still have one copy of it. It is so old that literally the pages are kind of cracking apart, and it looks like something that came up from the Titanic or something. But I had Drew Brees here. He was my number 2 quarterback that year, behind Michael Vick, and slightly ahead of, I got some names for you, Chris Winkie, Sage Rosenfels, Marques Tuiasosopo, and of course, ESPN's own Jesse Palmer. So, I mean, I kind of go back a ways myself. Do you remember, where you had Drew Brees? Were you a believer in him? And is there other players that, who were some of the top-rated prospects, that you can ever remember? Whether they actually ended up signing on with your team, or you ever played with them, or drafted them, or signed them as free agents or not, who are some of the players that had the highest grades ever on Scott McCloughan's board?
Well, the thing about it, as you're well aware, I'm doing this so long that I have a lot. The thing that's interesting about Drew Brees, John Schneider, of course, the GM with the Seahawks, and my father, who was working for the Raiders, were at Purdue together. And I'll never forget, John called me, and I don't know which team. He might have been in Kansas City at the time or something, but he said, there's a really good quarterback at Purdue. And I said, yeah, but he's short, right? He said, it doesn't matter. And my dad came back, and I'll never forget, we met face to face, and he said, this guy is really good. He says, but I can't give him a good grade because Al Davis doesn't like short quarterbacks.
Yep.
But he said he's really good. The best grade I ever gave, and I'm going to embarrass myself here, but he was an average player. Peter Warwick.
Really?
State.
Yeah.
Peter Warwick. I gave him the best grade you can give him on our draft scale. I loved him.
Yeah.
I thought he was dynamic as a returner, as a receiver, the whole package.
Yeah.
And
went number 4 overall. Let's not give yourself, blast yourself too much. It's not your fault that he went to the Bengals, and all kinds of players busted with the Bengals.
No, you're right. You're right. Your memory's really good, just so you know. But you know what? I was young, and I was, thought I knew what I was doing, which, I kind of did and I kind of didn't. But he was just such a dynamic player on the football field. And I saw him play live probably 2 times, 3 times. And he was playing Lavernius Coles at the time.
Yeah.
They had, and somebody else, a big receiver. But he took games over, But as you're well aware, it's a different game in the NFL compared to college.
Yeah.
He wasn't a big guy. He wasn't a fast guy. He was quick. And he was a football player. But that's the biggest grade I ever given. And I realized at that time, I better be careful putting that grade out there. It was a 9-0, which means he's a perennial Rookie of the Year, Pro Bowler. And I'm just like, shoot. But I think he went to the Pro Bowl. I don't know. But a lot of guys that I drafted, like, I'll never forget,